these other movies have had just a little title ID, and then you start the film, I thought, well, that seems natural here. You do the little Breaking Dawn 2, and then her eyes open with the big boom that we left the first movie on. And looking at it, it felt as though somehow you needed to get where you were feeling at the end of that first movie.
Stay, Bella. Stay focused.
So I decided to do a full-on main title sequence.
You think it's just going to be this beautiful red, black, and white landscape typography, and then every now and then there's a little speed ramp. There's a little something that suggests, oh, this isn't just aerials, this isn't just the Pacific Northwest. We're returning back into the world of Twilight. We're coming from the aerials down to the nature and then macro bits of nature.
Really, I think it gets you right back into the mood of the first Twilight movie because it's all huge landscapes, but it intercuts from that to what's happening inside Bella.
The poetic idea is that Bella is dreaming and in the last stages of her transformation, and maybe she's starting to associate the changes in her body with changes in nature.
It's like the tilting of the planet almost, like sort of blood is running over the plains and things like that while this stuff is going through her body.
The change in the climate is also the change in her body temperature. Bella's going to become one of the cold ones. She's going to be a vampire, and just loved that idea and really grabbed hold of it. Oh, wow, we could shoot, ice crystals forming on blood, ice crystals forming on flowers, on vegetation, on branches. Even the macro moments of the surface of snow are drawing connections to the surface of her skin. The surface of her skin is going to glisten and sparkle the way that snow does. There's a force of nature that's coming, and even the wolves are awakened to this idea. You see some cuts to them that whenever a vampire is created, there's this idea that now a member of the tribe is able to phase into a wolf. So we love the idea of embracing that part of the narrative as well. One of my favorite parts of the main title is when her pupils start to fill with blood, and they fill and change her human brown eyes into crimson red. The interesting thing is when we were shooting the super macro moments of the transformation that's happening in her eyes, we used portobello mushrooms and injected them with fluid, and it sort of looked like the fibers were opening up. And the fibers of a mushroom that are not unlike or not dissimilar to the fibers of the human iris. And those are the moments leading up to the beautiful macro shot where her eyes the pupil fills with blood and overflows and kind of changes that brown colored human eye to the crimson red of a vampire.
Seth. Breaking Dawn 1 ends with the moment Bella wakes up as a vampire, and Breaking Dawn 2 begins at exactly that same moment.
We kind of spin the first act really with the newness of Bella as a vampire and sort of what that brings.
That first idea of adjusting your eyes to a new way of seeing.
She has this very acute vision. So right off the bat, you'll see her zoom into something, almost microscopic.
You've been watching 4 movies where you see vampires from the outside, and now you get to experience what it's like.
Before you speak, you already know what you're saying. Before you move, you're already there. Mentally, it's like it's already happened, and so it's just a completely different way of approaching movement and talking, just approaching an entire scene.
There's something so different about this character that Kristen has been dying to do this.
I've been really, really excited about developing Bella's vamp thing, and not just the look. Everyone was very obsessed with, how beautiful she gets, all of that, but I loved how alive she became, and how before the idea was even, really clearly stated in the book, in lines, in dialogue, that she's different and she's special, you can feel it instantly.
Bella, as a vampire, in the novel, is a completely different person. She sounds different, she looks different, she's superhumanly strong, she can do everything she's always dreamed about. In the movies, of course, we're working with a human actress who is going to remain human and not turn into a vampire. And yet, Kristen did such a good job of creating this entirely new character that feels like a new person.
It was just a way of holding herself. She was straight now. Whatever kind of slouchy alt thing that she was doing before, that's all gone. So it's all combines to create a really different kind of image.
You could feel that, excitement as wow. It's real now, she's a vampire.
I agree. You need to get your thirst under control. Yeah, you'll need to hunt.
Me and Edward were able to go for our first hunt, which is just like an instant bonding experience. To be able to just book it through the forest and know that he's right behind me. Everything that I love about it is just, it's all right there.
There's a very sort of visceral sequence where we find her running at vamp speed where she's just a blur, but then the camera chases her down and overtakes her, and all of a sudden it snaps into this hyper-overcranked slow-mo world so she could be going incredibly fast, but she notices everything. And it's here she first experiences her powers, that she can run at vamp speed and she can leap incredible spaces.
We've watched Vampire Speed before in these movies, and it's all like, whoosh, whoosh, people go through, and there are various ways of doing it. But then the whole point is, what's it feel like to be doing it? What's it like to be inside it? So we played with point of view there in a way that we haven't been able to before.
In the book, the hunting was my favorite. I love how she's just, like, excelling.
Everything physical suddenly becomes very easy, almost like a superpower. And yet you have the balance of all of a sudden you're so thirsty.
The only worry is Bella, how she's going to behave as a vampire. She's going to go crazy.
She is the first vampire in the history of my mythology that has chosen to be a vegetarian vampire before becoming one.
Everything that they've talked about up until this point, keeping them from changing her, has led her to believe that it's going to be hell. Like, it's really not going to be fun literally the first few years. It's going to be all about thirst and self-control and being embarrassed about how you're not controlling yourself.
In the sequence, she smells a mountain climber, and she's distracted from her original hunt, and she can't control herself, and she takes off. And then she's scaling a couple thousand feet of sheer granite wall as if she's climbing, a step ladder. So we had to add scope and scale using matte paintings and a lot of environmental enhancements.
Bella has this amazing self-restraint, really unheard of in a newborn. It's just inherent in her character.
So when she just takes to it, I mean, that's my favorite line. To get out here. Even though she makes fun of it, her super self-control and all of that is actually probably the coolest power in the series.
And that?
We'd already had the twist that she wasn't going to kill Bambi and she was going to protect her instead and kill this predator.
We made a foam cushion called the Potato that was about cougar size. And then we had Kristen actually jump off a platform, grab this thing, roll around on the ground, and grab the cougar and go down and bite it.
It feels good to get physical when I've always literally stood behind people and been like, ah.
I'm amazed.
How do I hear thoughts? How does Alice see the future?
Charlie on the mark.
This was maybe the most controversial idea of this novel. For people who aren't in the world and aren't sympathetic, they sort of were trying to look at it in a more salacious way. So now here's the moment where it's confronted.
Let's not push it down. Bella meets Renesmee for the first time, and all of the Cullens and Jacob are inside the house. And it gets very awkward towards the end, because I'm very protective over Renesmee. Bella is a newborn vampire, and I don't want anything to happen.
I really love the way that Kristen plays it completely seriously, and she carries the weight of a mother protecting her child.
Everyone's toyed around with being really feral and crazy and aggressive, and it's fun to do. It's, for bloodlust and all of that, or just anger, but it's more fun when it's protecting the child. It just takes it to a whole new level. It's a lot of fun to play, because there's nothing you fight for harder than your kid.
You imprinted on my daughter?
It wasn't my choice.
She's a baby!
It's not like that.
We've been doing stunts all day. It's a big scene. Bella's just found out I imprinted on her daughter, and she's beating the crap out of me today. I'm getting beat up by a girl.
You have some moronic wolfie claim on her?
She literally tosses me around the whole yard.
It was fun to throw Taylor around, because Taylor's not only the best at getting thrown around, so I wasn't scared of hurting him, but it definitely makes you feel very empowered when you go like this and he flies across the forest.
She flings me like 3 times. The first one is down the staircase, and at first I was harnessed up. It worked well. The big thing was making it look realistic, not like I'm Superman flying down the staircase. But then we took the harness off. I kind of just did it myself and just threw myself off the staircase, and I think that one ended up working best because it just looked more realistic. The second one, Kristen punches me in the shoulder and just sends me straight into the ground. And then the third one, she pushes Jacob and he flies back like 10-15 feet into a tree. And that was my stuffed double.
It's been really awesome to just conceptually play that I am the strongest person in the room. To just know that just to know that one newborn, you're the strongest. It definitely had an effect on like how I stand next to these big, huge guys that are clearly stronger than me.